Welcome to the Three Wise Men of Divorce, Money, Psych, and Law podcast. Sit down with the California divorce experts, financial divorce consultant Mark Hill, psychologist Scott Weiner, and attorney Shawn Weber for a frank and casual conversation about divorce, separation, co-parenting, and the difficult decisions real people like you face during these tough times. We know that if you are looking at divorce or separation, it can be scary and overwhelming. With combined experience of over 70 years in divorce and conflict management, we are here for you and look forward to helping by sharing our unique ideas, thoughts, and perspectives on divorce, separation, and co-parenting. So hello, welcome to the Three Wise Men of Divorce, Money, Psych, and Law. And we're going to talk about today, it's strange times that we're living in, wouldn't you say, guys?
Truly much so.
We have some nutso stuff that we're going through, and people that are going through a divorce, it's making it even doubly more difficult. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you some ideas for how you can get through a divorce during this period. So I'd like to just kind of introduce our panel first. First person to introduce is Mark Hill. Mark, why don't you say something a little bit about what you do?
Hi, I'm a financial divorce consultant, CFP, CDFA, basically work on the financial aspects of divorce, do a lot of alternative dispute resolution.
And Scott.
I'm a clinical psychologist and a lawyer and a mediator, and I really work a great deal in coaching, doing the psych aspect of people dealing with the conflicts of divorce.
Okay, and I'm Shawn Weber. I'm an attorney and a mediator. I always say I'm a dolphin instead of a shark. I help people figure out how to get a divorce without losing all their money and screwing up their kids in the process. Helping people find a way forward that is peaceful and helps them do what they need to do with their lives. So, guys, rough times out there, wouldn't you agree?
Yes, indeed. People are trapped in their homes. People are trapped away from each other. And the only people that they're really close to, in the case of people wanting a divorce, are the people that they're desperate to get away from. So it's hard times that way. It augments the tension. There are more reports of abusive situations going on, a lot of yelling and a lot of screaming. The people who aren't trying to divorce are making their way through all right. I think I see people walking in the neighborhood. It's rather almost delightful the way they are with their families. However, this is not what I'm hearing on the professional end on the phone line.
Yeah, I gotta agree. When I'm meeting with people, I'm finding that they're just far more anxious than they were before. People are just really agitated during the sessions. And so I'm spending a lot of my time just kind of helping people stay calm and figure a way forward. And it doesn't help that the courts are closed. And in San Diego County, California at least, the courts aren't going to open until the end of May. And then they're telling us it's a soft start. And the latest statistic I heard, there was 9,045 hearings in San Diego alone that needed to be rescheduled. And so we've got all these people that are just trapped and stuck in their divorce because the legal system can't handle it. So Mark, what are you seeing?
Well, put that all together and then add probably the greatest financial insecurity of this generation of parents' lives. Not only do you have the normal anxiety that is produced by going through divorce or separation and all the emotions that are around that, but now add in uncertainty around jobs. Perhaps somebody's already lost a job. Perhaps both parties have. What does that do to their financial situation? I've had clients ask me, can we afford to get divorced? And that's a really significant question. Additionally, asset values are being impacted. You know, the stock market's down. What's a house worth today? We don't know. We don't know the impact of all this. So add all that uncertainty on top of a situation where you are going through a divorce or contemplating divorce, and people can do two things. I've seen people freeze and not be able to act at all, and people candidly behave in ways that may be self-destructive and not really help them. So it's a very difficult time we're facing.
Okay, so what are people going to do? So they're stuck in these divorces. The courts are locked up. I mean, we always talk about there's 4 ways you can get a divorce, 4 basic ways, right? The first one people think of is litigation, where you hire attorneys and you go to court. You know?
Is that an option?
It's not available, at least. I mean, you can do it. You can file something. At least you can't file anything in California, at least, until the courts reopen. And then once the courts reopen, they're going to be so backlogged that I think it's going to take a while. I mean, litigation does have its place. I mean, there are people, the domestic violence courts are open, you know, and so, you know, Mark, you mentioned that there are people that are, you know, there's been an increase of reports of violence in the home. So domestic violence is certainly an option. And if that's going on in someone's life, they need to take care of it and protect themselves and be safe. But other than that, a lot of people are just kind of stuck because they're waiting.
And what kind of delays are we looking at, do you think, Shawn? Is it weeks? Is it months? I mean, you know, the courts were already slower than I've known them in my 20-year plus career at processing cases and have less resources. What's the likelihood that they're going to, do you think there's a chance there will be an injection of resources to do the catch up, or does everything get pushed down the road for months?
I mean, I don't know. They already were cash strapped in the courts system in California. We had a statewide fiscal crisis with the court system. And so things were going slower. They just didn't have the personnel to do what needed to be done and to process the cases as quickly as they needed to be processed. But, you know, you add this, that we have to continue at least 9,045 hearings in San Diego alone once the courts reopen. So they're probably going to be first when it's time to reschedule. And so if somebody wants to file something or get heard by a judge and they want to file it after May, they're going to have to get in line. And I imagine just for even just simple routine hearings, you're not going to get hearings scheduled until December. Yeah. And you're probably not going to get a trial until next year. You know, I mean, I don't know for sure because no one's told me this is when the trials are going to happen, but just looking at what their backlog was before, it took about a year. Maybe if it was a short cause, you might be able to get in a half a year, you know, to get a trial, but a traditional, you know, typical divorce that may be on multiple days, that's going to be a year at least before it gets heard.
What if you can't wait a year? That concept is just overwhelmingly terrifying to you. You want out, you've been in the process, or perhaps you're just starting it. What other alternatives can we offer?
So that's the thing. I mean, we can offer people, and the 3 of us work together on these kinds of cases with no court options. You don't have to rely on the courts to figure this out. And that's the big misnomer out there is people think, well, I have to wait for a judge to do something. You don't have to do that. We've got other options. And one of them is mediation, which the 3 of us do quite a bit together. Divorce mediation, where you have a neutral party, a mediator, who works with the parties to help them bridge gaps and to find a resolution for their case. And essentially what happens in those situations, the clients remain in charge and you can meet when you need to meet. Most mediators can get you in within a week or 2 at the most, and you can move your case along. And it's a process because there's work to be done. You know, my average divorce case on a mediation gets done in 6 months or so. That's a heck of a lot faster than waiting years, which is what would happen if you were in the court.
I know a lot of people, Shawn, will ask the question, does an agreement I come up with in mediation hold the same weight in the law as if I have an attorney working on my behalf?
Well, and it does. So what you do is you should have attorneys review your agreement, number one, which is you don't have to give up your attorneys if you're already in a litigation process. But you can write up, you know, as mediators, we can write up binding agreements that have the same effect as if it came directly from the judge. And in fact, the courts like them better because it's your agreement and you're in charge of the decisions as opposed to having some stranger decide what's going to happen with your case. Right. And they're every bit as binding as what you get at court.
Well, I think that people listening to us at this point need probably some reassurance that there's enough experience in a group of people such as you're viewing here that we know where the judge pretty much would come down anyway. We know how to guide the process, although we won't push anybody into any sort of agreement, but there's knowledge. You will be informed of what the legal aspects really are. Here is what normal support declarations would be. Here is what basically the meat and potatoes facts. Then, because this is mediation, because it will be your agreement, you can move that in any direction that suits you. But you will have the knowledge behind you. You won't be landing on some bizarre square. It won't be happening that way. So you're going to wind up with a process where you get your own interests and needs addressed more directly, more personally, but there will also be the background knowledge of where the neighborhood is of a reasonable, fair agreement. So that is what we can offer. It's a great deal faster, costs perhaps a third as much as litigation. We like to think in terms of the long term. Yes, we got to get you the relief you need right now, but wouldn't it be nice if you could both go to your children's wedding? Wouldn't it be nice if you could really have some peace and a new chapter in life and not have come out of a bleeding litigation war?
Yeah, what would it be like to be able to go to bed and not worry about what the other person is going to do next? Just be able to sleep through the night without that kind of a nightmare constantly in your mind.
And also, wouldn't it be nice to know what this is going to look like financially after the divorce, as opposed to just knowing, well, I got my half, but I have no idea what that means I can afford, what kind of lifestyle, what my children's situation will be like. So part of what I like to do when we work on these cases is give people an idea of a realistic future so that they can be set up for success financially.
Yeah, I mean, that's the key, isn't it?
Yes.
People keeping control of their lives. You're in charge when you're mediating as opposed to a stranger in black robes. And I've heard judges tell me before, I mean, the judges don't mind me talking like this because they want people to figure things out on their own. The judges don't want to be saddled. And, having said I've sat as a privately compensated temporary judge before, and you're asked to make decisions that it's not about your life, it's their lives. And so allowing people to be empowered to make their own decisions is so much better for them.
If people are feeling like their soon-to-be ex-spouse is completely unreasonable, what kind of guidance can we offer them? Can we assure them that we will try to offer them, to let them know that a process like ours is reasonable as opposed to the more iron hand of a litigated process?
Well, to answer that, Scott, the first thing I would say is people tend to be more reasonable when they don't have a gun to their head. So if people are coming to a process voluntarily in a safe environment, whether it's on a Zoom call or whether it's in one of our offices, they tend to be operating more rationally than in a kind of a fight or flight mode, which is what you see when they're at court. The other thing is, the three of us have training. We know how to help people get to a place where they can find an agreement.
Yes, I think it's important for people to understand that one of the things that we all do in conflict, whether it involves divorce or not, is we get stuck into our positions, and those become sort of sticking points for us. And what mediative professionals do is we try to get people to consider more what their long-term interests are, and so that they can flex on some of those positions, give a little here, take a little over here,
Yeah, how many times have we said that? If we're doing our job, both of you walk away a little disappointed.
Yeah.
Because it means you gave up something, you compromised. And so many people think of compromise as a dirty word, especially like in our political environment. Oh, he compromised. compromise is a good thing. Compromise means that you put the relationship, you put your family ahead of your sacred cow, so that you can find a place to have that peace. And the other thing that happens in mediation, and I did this with a couple yesterday, is you help them narrow in on what do they really value as people. What are these no-brainer things that they value? You know, like we can all agree that we want our children to be safe. Nobody's going to say, oh, I want my children to be unhealthy, you know, or a lot of times people say, you know, I don't want the other person to suffer. I want the other person to be okay. I've had those cases where they're like, no, I do want the other person to pay dearly and suffer dearly. But most of the time people are, you know, I want them to be okay. Yeah, and so mediation is one of those options. And the other option that we work in quite a bit is collaborative practice. Maybe, Mark, do you want to give us a little bit of a primer on what collaborative practice is?
Yeah, I always think of it as mediation with resources at the table. So it's a team-based approach where both clients have their own attorney, not representing them, but basically they're in their corner, helping them with the legal understanding of what they're discussing. There is a communications coach, a licensed mental health professional, not doing therapy, but really helping with them being able to communicate. If there are children, there's another mental health professional who will give a voice to the kids and help with parenting plans. And my role as the neutral financial is to gather all the data and to kind of reality test what we're considering, so the clients have got pretty good understanding if they make choices, what that might mean for their future.
Yeah, I mean, I like collaborative because I don't think there's any process that gives the clients more support professionally, you know, and really covering the money, the psychology, and the law in a way that collaborative practice can.
I want to say something about collaborative. I want to talk about quickly that when I trained in collaborative, and to be a collaborative professional, typically you go through a training because each professional has a slightly different role from what their typical role was. I thought it was so professionally top heavy. I thought there was so much unnecessary professional weight in the process. I now completely disagree with myself. It is so far superior a way of working. The clients get so much support, direction, and help, and the outcomes are rich with guidance, with forward thinking, with financial modeling that people can all understand. Every collaborative case I've seen, the lawyers sort of reach across to the other side and support the other side. Everybody takes care of everybody in this model. It is not adversarial, which of course the court system by nature is. I mean, they call it a trial for a reason. This goes back 1,000 years is all or more. And so this collaborative model to me is, I don't know if I can say it anymore, but the Cadillac of, and it is not as expensive by any means as litigation is. There are no depositions, there's no discovery, there's no law in motion, you know, everybody attacking from all sides, which is exceedingly expensive in a litigated divorce.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting, you know, no discovery, but in both the mediation models and in the collaborative models, I found that people are far more forthcoming with information than they are in the litigated model. You know, as lawyers, we're trained to, when we receive a request for discovery, for formal discovery, like a demand for production of documents or subpoena or something like that, that we're to give as little information as we can legally get away with. You know, that's what we're taught, you know. And so you make your evidentiary objections, you try to make it a challenge for the other side to get the information.
That's so different than what I do with the financial discovery.
Right. So
basically, I'm working with the couple individually and together. And, you know, there's a sniff test that goes on. If you've got one party that's been mostly taking care of the money, I want to know the confidence that the other side has. But also, I'm going to do my due diligence. I'm going to look at tax returns. I'm going to look at statements. I'm going to ask the questions where something comes up that someone has a concern. And people have to be open and honest with me. because if not, it violates my ability to be neutral and to essentially serve both parties. So it's almost like it's the acid test. We know very quickly if this case is not going to work if someone's withholding data, you know?
Okay, so guys, what do we do if you're sitting at home with, I just had this call today from somebody. You're stuck at home with your estranged spouse. You want a divorce, but you're in this house together because you're under quarantine and you want to talk to each other about getting the divorce, but the other party doesn't really want it. How do you find some sanity for yourself to kind of push it to the point where you can actually do something and find an escape plan?
That other person who doesn't want to do it certainly needs some kind of reassurance to begin. They need to know that there's life after this process. And, you know, there is this dichotomy, the leaver and the leavee, the person who is left. And yeah, there is an emotional gradient that is inherent in that. But under the law, anybody who wants a divorce can have one. So given that fact, even if you do not want this to happen, if the other person wants it to happen, it shall happen. The question is, what kind of quality of experience following the divorce and even during the divorce do you want to have happen? Do you want to have? And, you know, we can speak to that.
If someone's reluctant to engage around this, I always ask the question is, well, what is scaring you about the next move, or what's concerning to you about what would worry you if you felt you went down the road of, say, mediation or collaborative? What would be the most concerning to you about that? What's the most concerning thing about the next stage in your marital sort of separation? And then when people start talking in those terms, I mean, they're focusing on something real, not something amorphous that is just too scary to even look at. So, you know, I don't think that collaborative or mediation is something that needs to be sold. I think it's something that clients come to under their own accord if they're encouraged to think about it in a way that really, truly benefits them.
I agree. I find more what occurs is that people will say something like, well, we haven't tried everything with this marriage yet. I don't want to, you know, I don't want to move forward with that. You know, we need more therapy. We need more, or we haven't tried therapy, or if he would only just, or if she would only just, then, you know, and again, it is one of those particular contracts. You decide you do not wish to be involved in this contract anymore, you can extricate yourself. So it really doesn't, if someone has really decided that divorce is going to occur, it's not so much an if, it's a matter of how. And that is what we're trying to explain to whoever is listening to this today.
It's kind of like, you know, when I had younger toddlers, you would say to them, would you like to wear the blue shoes or the red shoes? It was not a question of whether they were going to wear shoes, you know? And so when you're talking about a divorce, here are our options. We can lawyer up and go to court, or we can do mediation, or we can do collaborative. Either way, a divorce is going to happen. Now, that's if that's where you really are. I mean, I've had some people that come to me and I say, is there nothing that can be done to save this marriage? They're like, well, you know, a little bit of counseling might help. And then I'm happy to talk to the parties about, well, okay, let's make a decision here. What can we do? What process do you need to have to talk about whether to get divorced or not? But for most people, if somebody's made up their mind that they want a divorce, then the most important thing they can do, I mean, what do you think, Scott, is just be very firm and unambiguous about it. Sometimes we want to protect people's feelings. And so we just don't come out and say, there really is nothing you can do to save this marriage. It's really over. We're either going to get divorced in court or we're going to get divorced in a friendly way. And I would prefer to do the friendly way, but either way, it's going to happen.
That's well communicated. People in the midst of this particular kind of suffering, often their communication suffers as well.
Yeah.
They feel guilty about trying to proceed with divorce. The whole culture and any number of religions and will have told them that this is a form of moral turpitude. But here we are. I mean, for whoever is listening to this, it's not that we don't care about your feelings and your deep commitments, but once this process is going to occur one way or another, what we offer is a far kinder and a far wiser way to go through it without losing as much and potentially gaining a lot if if we can help you land on better squares, better arrangements for visitation, better arrangements for financial reality, better arrangements to live. And hopefully through doing this process, you will actually learn to communicate with each other better. And that can last a lifetime. Want to go to your kid's wedding? Want to be friendly at some time down the line? Wouldn't that be better? That's what we offer.
And what people don't understand is that they set foot on a path that they don't understand the consequences of that path. I call it actually the divorce escalator. People may be listening to this and going, well, I got to talk to this lawyer and he seemed like a good guy and would really sort of take care of me. And he only wanted a small retainer. And so I thought, well, if that doesn't work out, maybe we can mediate it later. If you've ever gotten on an escalator, if it's going down and you suddenly want to turn around and get back off and go back up, there's a lot of impediments in your way. Not only is the thing going down, there's a bunch of people behind you all trying to get down, not want to go up. And that's like divorce. Once you've set foot on a litigated divorce, the danger of it is, especially if you're scared and you get an aggressive attorney. If you were to do that on one side, Shawn, what kind of attorney do you think the other party's going to choose?
They're going to get an aggressive attorney to counteract the aggressive attorney.
And then you're off to the races.
And then and I got to tell you, that we're taught in law school to be zealous advocates. And I always, I ask myself, what is a zealot? That's kind of a crazy person, isn't it? And that's what's inspiring. Somebody's going to be a crazy person for you. And that's good in certain circumstances when you really need that. But I'd say 9 out of 10 divorces, what they really need is to be able to sit down, compare what their interests are, see what they need, and try to get there in a way that's not going to screw them both up. Because it really is like mutual assured destruction when you're going to court. Yeah. So, okay, so we've talked about 3 ways to go. There's the litigation, which for some people you have to. If you can avoid it, please do, because the other side is so much nicer.
I wanted to narrow that a bit. I wanted people to know, a little more about at least what we think about when you have to. When you have to, for my money, is when there is imminent danger. Not imagined danger, not imagining what somebody's going to do. Well, he's going to take all of the this, that, and the other. No, it's when you are truly in danger. Yes, you need to, and that lawyer will basically go to court with some sort of a very firm motion to protect, in some kind of way. But if you have any bit of reasonable interaction, any bit of trust at all, there's a better way.
I always say, if there's a roof over both parties' head, if the bills are getting paid and they both have access to the children, the courts don't need to be involved. Pretty much. I mean, yes, there's domestic violence, but which would be an exception to that. But if you think about it, if those things are going on, usually you can work through the process, and you may need to engage the courts later, but it should not be the knee-jerk reaction.
The reason that's true is because if you have your basic needs met as he described them, then your interests mutually are in concerted analytical powers, and you're much more likely to have good analysis, fairness, open discussion in a mediated situation rather than when you're lobbing mortars back and forth. Mortar shells are not very reasonable.
The other thing is, sometimes people go to court because the other party won't come to mediation or won't try to settle. But when you have to hire an attorney, not all attorneys are created equal. I don't think it's in your own best interest to hire someone that's just going to be a shark. You know, you want somebody, I would say hire a dolphin instead. You want to hire somebody who's going to be intelligent about how they approach the courts. They're going to settle when they can settle. There's no sense in litigating something, you know, to save $5. You know, I can't tell you when I used to litigate how many people wanted to spend $20,000 in legal fees over a $5,000 issue. So you want to be smart about your application of your lawyer, and talk to your lawyer. You know, if there's going to be a settle, are you going to be willing to settle? And are you going to be willing to let me be in charge instead of you be in charge? You know, and some attorneys will tell you, oh, no, if I'm your attorney, then you have to do everything I say. I'd be very careful about that person.
The other thing you have to do, which is really important, is choose who your spouse gets as an attorney.
Yeah, you can help with that.
I'm being facetious, but if you think about it, you can have the most reasonable attorney on your side, and we know the firms in town. You get them on the other side, it's a different experience, and it's not your attorney's fault.
Yeah, so if you go into a collaborative or a mediated context, you're more likely to get attorneys that are mediation friendly and settlement oriented.
Right.
And will keep you out of that divorce escalator that you're talking about. So then, you know, just to kind of recap, then we have mediation, which is where you work with a neutral mediator and sometimes 2 or 3 neutral mediators. The 3 of us have worked on cases as a team before. It depends on what you need, and there's no cookie cutter that fits everybody the same way. So we can tailor the case to fit what your needs are for your divorce. And that's a very quick, efficient way to do a divorce, and very safe, because you're not going to be forced to make any decisions. Everything's voluntary, and you have the right to have an attorney review your documents before you sign them. And then there's collaborative practice, which, as Mark mentioned, was, where you have a team of professionals that kind of cradle you and surround you. And each of you have your own attorney who will have your back, and you might have a coach who can help with emotional processing and communications, and you might have a neutral financial specialist, and you might have a child specialist, and all of these people work together. And the key to collaborative practice is that everybody pledges that they're not going to go to court. If someone does choose to go to court, then the professional team withdraws. So there's kind of an incentive to stay in the process. And those are 2 really powerful options that, even though the courts are locked up right now because of the crisis, we can move your case forward. You know, and even if you're with an attorney right now and you're litigating your case, you can shift gears and you can say to the attorney, hey, I can't get into court. Let's call up one of these mediators and let's settle our case that way. And if they don't follow your lead that you want to mediate, then you can look elsewhere.
Any amount that you have not already spent of your retainer shall be returned to you under the law.
You bet. You get it back. You have the right.
I always wish that clients have the opportunity, when they're embarking on a divorce, of thinking about what kind of container they need around them and support they need around them in order to have what is ending up, no matter how you do it, to be a very difficult conversation. And it's a difficult conversation if it's had between attorneys that are representing you. And it's just as difficult if you have to have it yourself. But it's no easier to have the attorneys do it. And you really may not get a conversation if you take that approach. But what kind of a container do you need to feel protected and safe? If you feel that you're confident, you have some understanding of your marital situation in terms of the money and how the kids work, mediation is probably appropriate for you. If you're on the side where you feel completely at sea, I've worked all my life. I had men say this I don't know what the kids do. She takes care of all that. So there's imbalances of knowledge and power that you can traverse much more easily if you have an environment where people can talk to each other.
Well said. So we want people to feel free to call us up, and all 3 of us offer free time on the telephone to help you figure out how you want to handle your case. If you feel like you're stuck in your marriage and you need to move forward, or you feel like you're stuck in your divorce because things are gummed up the court system, we know how to help you, and we can help you move forward. So Scott, how would they get a hold of you if they'd like to call a psychologist and a lawyer and a mediator like yourself?
They would call Scott Weiner if they wanted to talk to me. 619-417-5743. I'm a simple, old-fashioned kind of person. Call me on the phone. We talk. I will help you decide. And it's, by the way, of course, as a psychologist and as an attorney, if I don't think I am right for you, I am duty-bound to refer you elsewhere. And I will do that. And I do that all the time. If we're the wrong kind of a team for you, I'll know it. And as would any one of my brethren here. But you call me, and I will give you a free consultation. I will discuss the options with you. And that is how I work. Simple and plain.
Very good. Mark, how would they get a hold of you?
My company is Pacific Divorce Management. We're in Carmel Valley, just sort of south of the beaches here in San Diego. We are basically financial divorce consultants. You can check out the website, pactdivorce.com, or call me on 858-257-4612.
Okay, and I am Shawn Weber. I'm a mediator, owner of the firm Weber Dispute Resolution. We have a panel of mediators. If you have a dispute, no matter what it is, we can probably figure out how to work it out, and we can match you with a mediator that can get you to a closure of your conflict. And to get a hold of us, no matter where you are in the state of California, 858-410-0144. That's 858-410-0144. And the website is weberdisputeresolution.com. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Three Wise Men of Divorce: Money, Psych, and Law. If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share with others who may be in a similar place. Until next time, stay safe, healthy, and focused on a positive, bright future. This podcast is for informational purposes only. Every family law case is unique, so no legal, financial, or mental health advice is intended during this podcast. If you need help with your specific situation, feel free to schedule a time to speak with one of us for a personal consultation.